Here are the gap and go trades that I am tracking for the week of January 16th through the 19th. Two of them are new. The rest of them are older ones that have not filled the gap either to the upside or to the downside. First up is NEO. I'll give you some price targets for Tuesday and then show you the gaps that I am tracking. We ended the week at $7.17, down more than 3%. To the north side from where we are takes us back to the middle of the trend and the baseline at 721. Above that at resistance and a potential take profit area 735, 741, and 749. The gap that I'm tracking would take NEO all the way up to $7.91. And there is another gap that takes us to 848, 904, and this one closes out at $10.30. We are not in this channel, not in the zone. We are in a downward channel right now, so this is something just to put on your radar. And fingers crossed that we will stop the bleeding soon. For the week, we are down 12%. Yikes. Now, the next one is Sofi. We cracked also to the downside on Friday. We are down 4.5% basically. Now, we ended the week at 789, down almost 3.5%. The middle of the trend takes us back to 793, a level of resistance and potential take profit area 817, 830. This gap forms to the upside at 941 and closes out at 846. And then there are other gaps to the north side that take us to 1129. That I have been tracking for quite some time. We are in a downward channel, so we are not there, not even close. Right now we have to continue going sideways and then going up if we are going to hit those other targets, but that is going to be a while. To the south side, -2 standard deviations takes us to 768, 755. I bought in at different price points, including, I believe, at 747 there, or did I just track it? No, I think I tracked it. Let me just delete this. 743 to the south side. If we hit this line, or that line, I will anticipate a bounce as people buy the dip. Doesn't mean they're going to hold on to it, but they may just ride it out and get out if we start to go up a little bit. The next one is Tsly, the yield max option income strategy. We ended the week at $10.20, down more than 3%. We are basically at the middle of the trend and at resistance. To the north side takes us to 2 standard deviations. And that is roughly 1038. 3 standard deviations and another level of resistance, potential take profit area, 1047 and 1051. The next target would be 1057. This gap forms at 1073, closes out at roughly 1082. Then we've got this big one and this one. So I will just mark this out right here to 1248. We are in a downward channel right now, not close, but this is something just to be aware of should we correct. But I will anticipate all day long price to go from -2 to 2 standard deviations. If you're buying down here, you ride here, you could get out, get off the gravy train, because then that would take us to resistance and then a potential pullback area. On our way up, it becomes resistance. On the way down, we turn into support. The next one is Pfizer. I'm in this trade for my mom. We ended the week at 28.70, and to the north side takes us to 28.82. This gap forms at 29.05 that I have been tracking. And that would basically take us to almost 3 standard deviations, which is 29.08. And at 4, that would be 29.32. And this gap closes out that I'm tracking at 30.35. Now to the south side. Middle of the trend and support, 28.36, 27.87, 27.62, and roughly 27.37. This gap will take us down to 26.61. And I'll mark it out later and update you on that one. And remember to go look in the bigger picture. Pull out to the daily, the weekly, and the monthly, and look for other gaps to the south side where we could potentially go. This gap closed to the upside, as you can see there, at 28.54. Next one, Exelon Corporation. There are gaps to the downside, but all I'm going to do for this week is track this one. I think we could definitely get here if we bounce up. So right now we are at 36.07, down nearly 0.5%. The baseline takes us to 36.13. 2 standard deviations, 36.41. The gap forms at 36.40. 36.54, the gap closes out at 36.62, and another level of resistance and potential take profit area, 36.30, 36.68. If we get along these lines, I will anticipate a pullback as people buy the dip. As people take their profits, they lock in and they leave, okay? So that will be resistance up there. The next one is Altria Group. We ended the week at 41.34, down more than 0.5%. To the north side, 41.69, 41.92, 42.14, and the gap that I've been tracking for quite some time closes out at 42.40. To the south side, the baseline, 41.21, 40.73, 40.49, and 40.26. This gap is closed to the downside there. And note the sell-off at resistance, here as well. The next one is SLB, Schlumberger. Ended the week at 49.95, up 2%. I like the upward channel that we are going in right now. To the north side, 50.19. At 3 standard deviations, this gap opens up at 50.64. 51.01 closes out at 51.86. And you can bet if we hit those targets, there will be a sell-off. It might be temporary, but people will lock in their profits and leave. All right. To the south side, there's a gap that starts at 49.55. Middle of the trend, 49.38. This gap closed to the south side at 48, roughly 84. I'll just mark this one as well. Roughly. Support, 48.58, 48.16, 47.75. And note this gap is already closed to the south side. And this one to the upside, to the south side here. And I've been tracking this for quite some time. Hopefully we can close this out this week. OXY, Occidental Petroleum. We ended the week at 58.06, up more than 1.5%. To the north side, 58.30, 58.63. And definitely, if we close out this gap, there will be a sell-off as people take their profits and they run. 58.89. It could go down and then go back up again for another leg. And the one-year price target is 67.97. So according to the analysts, a lot of upside potential. To the south side, baseline 57.62. I will anticipate a bounce if we hit there. 56.94, 56.61, and 56.27. Obviously, if we make it down here, these gaps will close to the south side. For the purposes of this video, I'm just tracking the gap to the upside, but just know there is downside potential as well. The next one, BABA. I went the wrong direction. We ended the week at 71.84, down more than, well, down 0.25%. To the north side, back at the middle of the trend, 72.49, which I definitely believe we can hit. And 73.28, 73.68. This gap forms that I've been talking about at 74.01, closes out at 74.64, and this one closes out at 76.54. Nice upward channel that we are in. To the south side, -2 standard deviations, 71.68, 71.29, 70.84. The next one is Disney. I'm in this trade, and we've got a gap all the way to the south side that I've been tracking, and that would take us to the south side. Just get this out of the way. We're not in the channel, 84.83, and that's not what I'm tracking for the purposes of this video. I am only tracking this gap. So we are at 90.35, 90.99. The gap forms at 91.08, closes out at 91.49. If we make it to this level, I will anticipate a pullback and then a possible leg up again. But the next target after that, 91.57, 92.12. To the south side, back at the baseline, which I think we will hit, 89.87. And if we hit there, then I will anticipate a bounce off that line or close to there, 88.76, 88.19, and that gap forms at basically 87.59. SBUX. Several gaps you can see there, but we are basically at the middle of the trend. The next target, 92.71, 93.05, 93.39. This gap closes out at 94.15, and the one above that closes out at 97.64. Oh, the gap closes to the downside there at 85.18. That is a ways down there, but a potential buy-in area if you're trying to get in and you haven't yet, but it could go down even more. Double check the monthly time frame to look for any open gaps, monthly, weekly, and daily. Nike, 105.06, down more than 75%. To the north side, 105.78, basically at that baseline, which I think we will hit, closes out at 106.47. The next target, 106.69, 107.15, and 107.63. And this gap here takes us out to 122.40. We are not in that channel, not in the zone, not even close, but something to be aware of. And all these gaps closed here. To the south side, where I anticipate a bounce, 104.79, 104.35, 103.86, I think. Yeah. And finally, lows. Last one. Thank goodness. I've been rambling on for quite some time. We ended the week at 218.91. Down more than 0.5% to the north side, and the baseline 219.77, which I think we will definitely hit. So if you like to scalp, I think we will get there. Look at the other indicators as well on your candles. 221.60, even the buy and sell bot you could use. 222.51. Whoops. And this gap that I've been talking about takes us out to 225.33. And to the south side, 217.89, 217.05, 216.11. And that does it for me. That is our next gap and go trades that I am tracking for the week of the 16th through the 19th. If you want to check out the video from the trades that I tracked from January the 8th through the 12th, I did upload that video. All right, thank you so much for watching and have a great trading week.